This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
The 32nd President of the United States once quoted, "A nation that destroys its own soil destroys its own self." Resolve. This house, land subdivision is the leading cause of unsustainable food development. Judges and their goals are alleged. My first speaker came and well defined all the key terms in the motion, and our negators agreed to it. Judges and their goals are alleged. She gave our standpoint and our status quo clearly. Allow me to rebut. Judges, as I first said, our negators agreed to our definitions, and they said that sectors like forestry and others employs about 28%, and it's not land, it is not agriculture. But in our status quo, we clearly stated that today in Uganda, agriculture contributes 25% of the gross domestic product and employs 72% of the total population. But they're saying their sectors like forestry employs only 28. So tell me, how is 72, how is 28 bigger than 22? I mean 28. Judges and their goals are alleged. I would like to pose a question to our negators. What is the main cause of land fragmentation in Kigezi region? Is it not high population? I expected you did SST, you knew this. Judges and their goals are alleged. Our opponents are clearly basing on climate change, but we are asking to what extent does climate change becomes the leading cause of land subdivision in Uganda? And judges and their goals are alleged. My second speaker well stated our third point as being diverse, as land fragmentation leads to loss of biodiversity. And judges, climate change leads biodiversity is as a result of climate change. Judges and their goals are alleged. Our opponents gave us only 1 point, so I have little to rebut on. Judges and their goals are alleged. They say climate change is due to carbon emission, but we said land fragmentation leads to loss of agricultural land. Why? Because over the past 2 years, the number of people that own only 1 hectare of land has declined by 16%, judges and others. This is according to an information by FAO, that is the Food and Agricultural Organization, on the 16th of February 2023. Judges, also according to Uganda Radio Network, on 9th May 2024, Uganda has lost 504 hectares of land just as a result of subdivision. Their judges and their goals are alleged. Our second point being it increases fragmentation of land, judges and their goals are alleged. On 13th of April 2024, the Program Officer of Food Rights Alliance in his report stated that land division has become the major threat to sustainable and efficient food production in Uganda. Because
PRI on that point, Speaker.
Come up.
What are you doing to solve the status quo today?
That will be answered. Judges and their goals are alleged. As I was saying, the major cause of unsustainable food production is because there is no land for people to mechanize. When you have a small plot of land, how will you mechanize? How will we have commercial farming? And our opponents are basing on climate change, but the motion is food production, judges. So how do you relate climate change and food production? They have to do that very fast before the debate is done. The judges and their goals are alleged. Our main point of clash being climate change and land fragmentation leads to loss of biodiversity. In what way, judges and their goals are alleged? Land division reduces biodiversity and potential impacting ecosystems that are much important in agriculture, judges and their goals are alleged. The living organisms that are destroyed, because these lands, once they're subdivided, they're used for resettlement and industrialization, not for agriculture, dear judges and their goals are alleged. Judges and their goals are alleged. As I conclude, I would like to let my opponents know that let us agree to disagree, and by that I mean that let us agree that we the farmers are right. Remember, a nation that destroys its own soil destroys its own self. I rest my case.
The panel of judges, the two competing parties, and the House at large, I salute you all. Resolve, land subdivision is the leading cause of unsustainable food production. And we esteem negative. We are coming on stage to make Team Affirmative understand why do we refuse that land subdivision is not the major cause of unsustainable food production, because we have a positive and strong alternative to that case. I'm going to reach to that point. Team Affirmative, they came on stage, their first speaker failed to totally bring for us their greatest major cases that is standing in tonight's resolution that we can rebut upon. And they were only centering their explanation in land fragmentation. We do understand that there are already problems of land fragmentation. That is the same as land subdivision, and it's brought about by high population in other regions in the country. But we still know that due to the rising technology in the country like Uganda, even a small land that we still have in the country country with good, proper methods of agriculture, we can still farm in a small land and we get agricultural harvest, and we can also boost on the agricultural products that we have. Therefore, we are going to be fighting against unsustainable food production. That is why we say that Team Affirmative had no standing case in tonight's debate, and they were asking to what percentage does climate change affect agriculture. My first speaker came on stage and he told the House clearly that climate change leading contributor is greenhouse gas emission, and greenhouse gases to the atmosphere is leading to a rise in temperature of 2 degrees Celsius. COP28, that is the conference of parties, is fighting towards reducing the global temperatures from 2 degrees Celsius to 1 degree Celsius. That means that climate change is already a great threat. Therefore, we have to fight against combating climate change so that we can have sustainable food production in the country, because we know that land subdivision is among the contributors. But this debate is for us to understand what is the leading contributor to unsustainable food production, and we assume negative. We tell them it's climate change. And they also say that what is the main cause of land subdivision? Clearly answered: high population, high fertility we have in our country. This is bringing about land subdivision, but we are going to tell you that land subdivision is not the leading cause of unsustainable food production. That is why we esteem negative. We came and we told them our cases of being the erratic weather patterns and temperature variability. Why? Because we had a clash point in the night's debate, and it was about getting the sustainable food production methods, because we are debating about the leading causes of unsustainable food production. Therefore, we want to get what is the sustainable method of getting sustainable food production. Now, Team Affirmative come on stage, they fail to give us their cases. When we talk about erratic weather patterns, in the past and even some few years ago, farmers, they used to predict the time when seasons of rainfall come, and they make sure that they put their crops and they get their harvest. But due to climate change, there are already changes in weather pattern, and as a result of this problem, we are having agricultural sectors being affected. This means that climate change is a great threat, but not land subdivision. Temperature variability. Since we are saying that the greatest contributor to climate change is carbon emission to the atmosphere, that is now making the global rise in temperature to be to 2 degrees Celsius. And COP28 with other parties, they are fighting towards reducing it to 1 degree Celsius. That's why we say that when we fight against climate change, we are going to be having a sustainable food production in Uganda, even though we have greatest population in the country at the moment. Therefore, it means that land subdivision is not the leading cause of unsustainable food production in Uganda, but climate change and its impacts are the leading causes of unsustainable food production in Uganda. We esteem negative. We also stand firm to make sure that, to tell the House that since climate change is already the leading contributor or the leading cause of unsustainable food production, what are we doing? The government right now, they are working towards promoting green technology to make sure that the products or the machineries that they are going to use should not bring negative impacts to the environment, but should bring positive impact. Therefore, let us stand up together to fight against negative impacts of climate change so that we can have a sustainable environment and a sustainable food produced in the country. I rest my case. Thank you.
This is the High School Crossfire. We'll be back in a minute.